Hi, this is Bob Moore, VP of Mobile Development for Alpha Software, and in this segment, I'll show you how to build a progressive web app with Alpha Anywhere. The example app that I've built uses Firebase Firestore as a backend. Our Alpha Anywhere Firebase integration is currently under development, but I wanted to give everyone a look at what's coming in the near future. Like most any Alpha Anywhere created app, a PWA is generated from a UX component. I'll open my Alpha Notes component in Design View. You can see it consists of two panel cards contained within a programmatic panel navigator. I'll bring it up in Working Preview so we can see the functionality. The first page contains a list of notes in a typical list view, and when I tap on a row, it brings up the detail view where I can edit, delete, or submit any changes made to the current note to the backend Firebase Firestore database. I can also add a new note from here, or I can tap the back button and add a new note from the first panel card. This is a typical pattern we see in a lot of mobile apps. If I go back to design mode, I'll select the list control that is responsible for handling the Firestore data that drives this app. We'll look at the list properties. Notice that my data source is Firestore, and I'm using two connection strings to work with Firestore. One sends requests from Alpha to Firestore to retrieve schema information from the notes collection that I've created in Firestore. This allows the Alpha list builder to retrieve information about the collection. This uses a Firebase service account. The second connection string I'm using is for client-side communication with Firestore. This is the connection string that will retrieve, update, and create documents used by this app. Also notice that I've checked track changes and enable persistence. By enabling these two options, my app will now have persistent client-side data storage with real-time updates and offline synchronization. The Firebase JavaScript client handles all of this for us. Now that's amazing, really, and seeing it in action is very cool. We'll see that in a bit. By enabling what look to be two simple options in the Alpha Anywhere list builder, your app now has a client-side persistent data store with intelligent data synchronization and real-time updating. It works really well and it's fast. That opens up a whole bunch of new capabilities for your apps. And let me tell you, it's very impressive when you demo it to clients. Behind the scenes, the Firebase JavaScript client is using IndexedDB for on-device data storage. IndexedDB can handle a significant amount of data, and it's really only limited by the available device memory. If I click on the Fields tab, you'll see the fields that I've defined for my document. They include, among others, title, author, priority, status, and the note itself. Let's take a look at my Firebase setup to see what's going on with the back end. I'm not going to go into the details of how to set up a Firebase app in this tutorial because we're here to focus on using Alpha Anywhere to build progressive web apps. But you can expect to see some upcoming tutorials on using Firebase with Alpha Anywhere once we officially release the Firebase integration in the future. Here I've logged into my Firebase console for this app. Creating Firebase apps is a simple process, and the Firebase free tier allows you to build complex and comprehensive apps with a generous amount of data storage and I/O requests before you hit the threshold it requires payment. If I click on the Firebase database, you can see that I've got a collection called Notes, and the Notes collection has numerous documents, and that the documents have some fields defined. Firebase uses a scalable NoSQL document database, similar to MongoDB. These include title, author, category, priority, and status. These are the fields we saw in the list control in Alpha Anywhere. When I click on a document, you'll see that the document data changes. So this notes collection is serving as our backend for our Alpha Notes app. I'm going to head back to Alpha Anywhere, and in Working Preview, I'll add a new note so we can test out the Firebase connectivity. I'll click on the plus icon in the top right, and that brings up the detail view for a new record, or in this case, a new document. I'm going to enter a reminder to make reservations for dinner. The category is reminder. It's a #1 priority and it's open. The author will be me and my note will be don't forget, it's important. Then I'll click on the icon button to save and sync the data with Firebase, and we'll see that our note has been added to the list. Now if we switch back to the Firebase console, you can see that a 5th note has been added to the notes collection, and if I click through the collection, we can spot the new document. Note that these documents by default are appearing as sorted by the document ID, which is a randomly created UUID, but we can sort this, say based on priority, to easily find our document in the console. I'll click on the document filter icon and select priority, then click on the apply button. Now the documents are sorted by priority, and the document we just added is at the top of the list. Next, I'll make a change to verify that changes are working. So back in Alpha, Working Preview, I'll check on my dinner reservation note to make a change. The detail view scrolls into view, and I'll make some changes to my dinner reservations note. I change the status to done and add some more info to my note. Dinner set for 7 p.m. at Mario's. And I'll click the Save Sync button. Next, we'll go back to the Cloud Firestore console, and we'll see the change that I made. Then I'll go back to Working Preview and delete a note to verify that the deletions are working as expected. I'll select a row, the detail view slides in, and I'll check the delete icon. The list scrolls back into view, and we can see that the note has been removed. If I switch back to the Firebase Firestore console, we'll see that we're back to 4 records and that the document was deleted. So at this point, we've proven that our app is working correctly with Firebase. We can read, add, update, and delete documents. Now it's time to turn this component into a progressive web app. So from within Alpha Anywhere, I'll select the Design tab and then select the menu dropdown from the Component Builder. Next, I'll select Create Static HTML Files. You need to specify a location for the files to be generated. Here, I've specified CUX files, and the name of the folder is Alpha Notes. Since we need to include a file to display when a requested file is not included in the cache, I've created a page called offline.html, and I need to include that in the file set that we're going to create. I'll click on the button. In this case, we can see that I've specified the offline.html file. Next, check the Create PWA option and the PWA settings will appear. My app name is Alpha Notes. The short name is Notes. The description is Alpha Notes PWA app. The static cache name is PWA_cache_Alpha Notes. It's a good idea to use a naming convention like this because it makes it easy to identify which cache belongs to what app. And I've entered a static cache version of v-01.00. These versions can be any strings that you want, but here again, establishing a naming convention and sticking to it makes sense. Keep in mind that the static cache name and the static cache version are concatenated to form the actual cache name on the device. If you make any changes to the component after you've published the app, you'll just need to change the version number for a new service worker to be generated. If you recall from the PWA overview, the static file list is included in the generated service worker. Next, the dynamic cache name and the dynamic cache version is specified. Once again, these names are concatenated to create the cache on the device. The dynamic app cache max size limit property is used to specify the maximum number of items that are allowed in the dynamic cache. When the maximum number of items is reached, the oldest item in the cache are deleted to make room for the new item in the cache. The number of items is really only limited by available memory, and it may take some experimentation with your app to determine the best number to use. The start URL property indicates the name of the file to load at startup. By default, it is index.html. The offline HTML page property should point to the HTML page to display if a page is requested and is not cached. This page should inform the user that the device is offline and that the requested page is not in the local cache. I included a button in mine that returns to the index.html file in my offline page. The master icon is used to generate all of the required app icons. Numerous sizes will be generated from this master icon, so it's best to use a size of 512 by 512 pixels for this master icon image. Next, we need to identify the display property. How would you like your PWA to display? The options include standalone, where the app is displayed in its own window with no browser Chrome. It looks like a standalone app. The other options include full screen, minimal UI, and within a browser tab. Most of the time, you'll probably use standalone. This is the theme color property. This defines the top border color of the app window. Think of it like the status bar in a native iOS or Android app. Next is the background color property. This is similar to a startup or splash screen. This background screen typically appears for a split second on app launch. If you are using Firebase Firestore, make sure to check this property as I have in this property grid. This makes sure that the data received from Firebase is not cached in the dynamic cache. There's no reason to store any Firestore data in this cache because it will be automatically stored in the local IndexedDB database. If you decide to host your project with GitHub Pages, make sure to check this option, and then you'll most likely want to check the Set No Jekyll flag. This instructs GitHub Pages to not include Jekyll with your app. Jekyll is a simple static site generator that GitHub Pages typically includes. And the final option is a property to show debug console messages. You should check this while testing and debugging your PWA. But when you're ready to publish the app for production, you should uncheck this option. At this point, we're ready to generate the PWA, so I'll click the OK button and the process begins. Once completed, a pop-up will indicate that all the PWA files have been generated in the target directory. Now remember, PWAs must use the HTTPS protocol or they must come from localhost. For debugging purposes, you can use localhost with the Alpha Development Server. An easy way to do this is to set up a new project. I'll close the component and click on the New Project menu item within the Web Projects control panel. I'll call my new project Alpha Notes PWA Test. Next, I'll go into Project Properties. I'll set my default page to index.html, and I'll uncheck the options to include jQuery and jQuery UI. They are not needed, and loading them is a waste of time and space. From here, I'm going to launch File Explorer by clicking on the folder icon on the top menu bar. Next, I'll navigate to the directory that I specified for my PWA file set and copy those files to my project directory. In this case, I've specified the UX files folder on my C drive, and I'll open the Alpha Notes folder. I'll select all the files, then copy those to the clipboard. Then I'll use the back button to paste the files into my Alpha Notes PWA test web project. And then I'll close the window. Now you can see all the files that will make up the Alpha Notes PWA. From here, I can click on the Live Test button in the top menu bar of the Web Projects control panel. And using the Development Server option, select the index.html file and click the OK button. This will publish all the files to a __ live test folder within the Development Server web root. The app will launch in a browser window. If you look at the URL, you can see that we're using localhost and that the app is coming from the __ live test folder, which doesn't exactly represent the file structure that will be used when the app is published to a live server, but it's okay for our initial testing. Here we can see my PWA running in Chrome. I'll open the debugger so I can take a look at a few things. If I click on the Service Workers menu from the item on the left, you can see the Service Worker is installed and activated. Notice that it is activated for the domain http://localhost running on port 81 __ live test. This is important because only one service worker can be active for any domain. So if I were to create another PWA in another project and were to launch that app using live test, even if I've closed all the tabs, Chrome will keep this previously installed service worker running. Fortunately, we have control of the service worker in the debugger, so you can force a stop by clicking the stop link. You can also unregister the service worker with the unregister link. You can force an update to the service worker with the update link. And another option is to check the update on reload option here to force a service worker update on reload. The service worker will automatically update when the cache version is changed, even if a previous service worker is running. It may not activate until the page is reloaded. This can be confusing, but it ensures that there are no cache conflicts when the app is running. If I click on Cache Storage in the Cache menu, you'll see my two active caches, pwa_cache alpha notes -v -0.1.00, which is the static cache, and pwa_dynamic cache alpha notes v1.00. If I click on the cache name, we can see the cache entries in either cache. I'll explain how cache versioning works a bit later. If I click on the Manifest menu in the Application menu category, we can see some of the properties that were set in the Alpha PWA Builder. This includes the name, short name, description, start URL, theme color, background color, display mode. And we can see all the app icons. If I click on the Storage menu, we can see the amount of storage that this app is using. This includes cache storage, IndexedDB, which Firestore is using in this app, and the storage required by the service worker. If I expand the IndexedDB menu item, we can see that Firebase is using IndexedDB for its local data store. You'll notice that I have installed the Lighthouse Extension, and you'll want to do this if you're building PWAs. To do so, click on the Extensions icon in the upper right side of the Chrome window, and then select Manage Extensions. Next, click on the menu at the top left, and then click on the Open Chrome Web Store button at the bottom of the menu. Do a search for Lighthouse and follow the prompts to install the extension. I'll click on the Lighthouse selection and I'll generate a report by selecting the Progressive Web App category and then select the blue Generate Report button. I'm not going to do a performance report here because we're running with the development server and a performance report should be generated after you've uploaded your app assets to Alpha Cloud or whatever hosting provider you're going to use. Here we can see the Progressive Web App report, and we're in pretty good shape. The app is installable. It registers a service worker that controls the page. It's configured for a custom splash screen. It sets a theme color. It has the recommended viewport tag and the width specified. It provides an Apple Touch icon, and the manifest has a maskable icon. The only items in gray are redirects HTTP to HTTPS, which is expected because we're serving the content from an alpha development server and we're using the HTTP protocol. And the content is not registering as properly sized for the viewport because I'm using a mobile screen emulator with the Chrome debugger. The other thing to notice is the app install icon in the browser URL bar. If I click on that, it will install the app to the desktop screen. And notice it will launch the app in its own window with minimum Chrome. There is now an icon on my desktop that will launch this app. I'll close all these browser windows down so we can see it. Then I'll launch the app by double-clicking on the desktop app icon. To uninstall the app, I can click on the vertical dots icon and select Uninstall Alpha Notes. I'll close it for now and we'll relaunch the app in the Chrome browser so we can continue to work with the debugging tools. Cool. But how can you test the offline capability? It's very simple. You can either click on the Networking tab and select the offline preset, or from the Application tab, click on the Service Worker menu and check Offline. Now, assuming the caches are current, with the browser offline, I'm going to refresh the page, simulating an offline page load. Notice that all of our data is here and the app is running. I can select an item that brings me to a detail view. Let's add a new item. Remember, we're offline. I'll click the plus icon to add a new note. Title will be Added Offline in Chrome Browser, and I'll save it, and then I'll refresh the page. Notice the new record is displayed. Now let's open up the app in another browser. I'll use Microsoft Edge. This app is online, so let's add a new note here. This one will have the title Added Online in Microsoft Edge. Then I'll save it. Next, let's take a look at the Cloud Firestore console. Here you can see that the record we just entered from the app in the Edge browser was uploaded to Firestore. Now I'll go back to the app in Chrome, which is offline, and once again I'll refresh the page so we can see that the record that was entered in the Edge browser is not here, but the record that was entered offline here in Chrome is in the local database. Next, with the two browsers side by side, I'll bring up the Chrome browser online. Now watch carefully. Almost instantaneously, both apps were updated with the synchronized data. So we've proven that our PWA is installable. It supports online and offline use. It includes data synchronization with real-time updates. Now that's pretty incredible. So at this point, we've covered all the basics of what makes up and how to build a PWA with Alpha Anywhere. That includes full online-offline operation with data synchronization and real-time data updates. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for the following Q&A session.